Hey, what's up? What's up? Welcome to the C3 Pod. This is our first episode of 2026. My name is Brendan Allen. I'm senior editor at comiccon.com. Let's start with the bottom there. That's Erik,
Yeah.
our editor in chief at comiccon.com. And Brett is outnumbered here today. Brett is not from Comic Con. He does a bunch of sports nonsense.
Yes.
But yeah, so
Waste of
first
time.
first episode of the year, and both of the guys who are chronically late are late, which doesn't surprise anybody, I'm sure.
Habits.
But yeah. So I mean, it's been a couple of weeks. We for the first time we took a couple of weeks off with the intention of coming back. The last time we took a couple of weeks off, it was retooling the show to bring it back in a new format. But Brett, tell us about your Christmas and your New Year's. How have you been over the last half month?
Good, man. It's crazy to think that we're already here, a week into January. And it's crazy to think that last time we were on the, recording this show, that we were previewing New Year's. And like, even then, it's all like, wow, we haven't gotten all the way through December. So it's all like, that's kind of what you do as you get excited for the holidays. You kind of put a bow on everything that came before in the year. And as you do that, for me particularly, everything on the sports front, everything with football going on right now. It's such an exciting time of year. But then you blink your eyes, Christmas is over, New Year's is over. Next thing you know, you're 10 days almost into January, and we're starting the show back up. And it's all like, it feels like it's been a couple of weeks since we've been off air, but it's also crazy to think that it's been as long as it has, because we're so used to doing it on a regular routine that even if we maybe here and there have to skip a week because of our schedules, we still get back on track that next week. So definitely a little bit of a gap that we're not used to, but that also makes it more exciting, because when you sent the run of show email, it kind of was all like, the light bulb went off, the bell rung in your head, and you're like, oh, that's right, we have to get back on track with the pod. So here we are.
Nice. Did you have a fun New Year's in Vegas?
It was chill. I'm kind of like the other New Year's, or the other Vegas residents in New Year's, or I should say in Vegas on New Year's Eve. It's one of those things you avoid it like the plague. It's almost like you avoid it so much you kind of have to talk yourself like out of it sometimes, even though you never really do. But you kind of have to remind yourself, wait, there may be something going on. If nothing else, we could go to a bar and toast the New Year's there. And then you realize, no, because that involves driving, and that involves traffic, and that involves everything in between on the night of the 31st. But that's also a Vegas thing where you are maybe a little bit different.
So Johnny's new spot, Alebrijes, I was looking at some of the pictures that he posted from New Year's or whatever, but they had an amazing vantage point of Fremont Street and all the festivities they're having there, because I know they do a bunch of cool stuff on that screen that's over the whole thing, and then they have bands and things that come in. So lucky enough, I guess, if you own a restaurant, to have all your celebrity friends come by and hang out on the patio and watch all the festivities. But I think I would have hated to be on the ground. But if I'm ever out there, I'm going to definitely hit Johnny and Chef Paco up or whatever to get that vantage point, because it looked like they had an amazing time up there.
That's New Year's in Vegas for you. There's not a bad spot in town when you're in Vegas.
Oh, shit. Look at that. Steve showed up. Steve.
He has arrived.
How's it going, my man?
So it's funny. Let's qualify something really quick. This morning, I notified Brendan that I was going to be just a little bit late. And I did, inform him that. And he just responds back, okay. And that was really weird. It was really weird, right?
But then he starts explaining and justifying and like making excuses. And I'm like, dude, you may notice. Notice.
Okay. By the way, that mustache is out of control. Okay. Anyways,
Big.
like that mustache is in its own. It's borderline, as it almost needs a name, right? So he tells me, okay, cool, and I respond back to him, and I'm like, yeah, I know. I've had 2 weeks to be on time. And then he responds back and he's like, well, if you notice, I didn't say anything. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, this dude is going to launch everything right away, make me come in late. I know what he's about to do. So I already knew this was going to happen, which was great.
When you sent the message, I was just like, hey, I've had a rough couple of weeks. You can ask Erik, man. Like, I normally have a bunch of shit done before I go to bed at night. And I go to bed early because I wake up at 4 o'clock to go to the gym. I usually have 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock at least done before I go to bed. And it's been a little spotty the last couple of days because my kids' science fair stuff came up. We're wrapping up from the holidays, like all kinds of stuff. And so I get it. It's the bounce back from the holidays. And so I gave you zero shit. But then when Erik told me this morning, he's got a hard out, I was like, okay, so we'll get started without Vato and Steve. And when they come in, it'll be fine. But all of this is happening in your head.
This year, right? Because of how the holidays lined up, where it was a Wednesday Eve, Thursday holiday, right? Really, this last week from Christmas Eve to New Year's Day, that 8-day run, that time period right there didn't really have any operational days business wise.
Right.
Wow.
Like people weren't really doing anything. So what happened is, and I was telling someone yesterday that the first couple of days of this week, getting into, before this podcast, has felt like an absolute Monday on steroids 2 days in a row.
Right. Yeah.
So it's just been Monday, all the way until like I think I got home like 9:00 last night or something like that. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's been consistently like that to where I am so behind on things that I was supposed to have already had done by now. And I'm like, and I'm starting to do that whole thing. But I had a great New Year's. Went and met with CJ and Lauren from House of Cards Entertainment. They produced the Diecast Super Convention, Vegas Toy Con. They were in town. We went to dinner at Capo's, which is the Italian speakeasy.
Yep.
For New Year's, which was really fun. They expanded their stage up, kind of changed where it's at in the room, and it was a little more interactive. And then right before midnight, we got home probably about 11:00 or so. The kid and I just did our own thing, which was cool. And we just did our own little get together, watched the the festivities and the fireworks stuff on TV and all of that and everything, and hung out and kind of played some of his video games and those things. And I don't know that I would want my New Year's this year to be any different than that. I think for me that was a perfect way to do that. And he enjoyed where we were at and what we did, and he had friends in town, and so that was cool. And so that was kind of the run through there. And then besides that, I think the only other thing that really stands out on my end is that we will be announcing within the next couple of days, if not already going to be done, the Unrivaled show for Las Vegas. The official announcements will go out. And we have secured some of our talent. So it's pretty cool as to what we're putting together for it. So we have Greg the Hammer Valentine, the WWF wrestler. I believe he's a Hall of Famer. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
I think he is.
Oh, he's got to be. I'll check.
Hall of Fames. Yeah.
So Greg will be joining us. Dale Kelly, the narrator from Dragon Ball Z, the next week on Dragon Ball Z, will be joining us. We will also be joined by Tiffany Vollmer, the voice of Bulma from Dragon Ball Z, and the ever so talented and over 400 voices, Vic Mignogna, the voice of Broly. He has been in Full Metal Alchemist. You name an anime, he's in One Piece. He has been a character in some level, some way of almost everybody. Will be joining us as well. And then finally, we just got an agreement together yesterday. Jason Font, the Time Force Red Power Ranger, will be joining us. And Jason also is Leon from the Resident Evil franchise. So he's the one that they depicted Leon in the video games after, and he's voiced Leon and everything. He'll be joining us. He's got 2 new projects, which are really exciting. And I'm actually going to get him on the podcast, I think, because he is doing, so he's the voice of Trunks in the newest Dragon Ball Z release. But he's also going to be playing with Bat in the Sun Productions. And now Bat in the Sun, if you don't know, you've seen Bat in the Sun stuff. A lot of times Bat in the Sun comes up with like really cool like character matchups, and it'll be like Deadpool versus Darth Vader or, whatever. Right. And they do this film. So he had actually been in a film. The last film that Jason David Frank is actually in that is ready to go, and they're just rolling out when it's going to release. It's a combination of things. And I don't know all the details, so I don't want to get into, making up things. But my understanding is that there's something that's keeping that from releasing at this point. But Jason played Jason David Frank's left-hand man, or the next, like they were basically had like dual roles for a Power Rangers origin story concept that they came up with that Jason did, and Bat in the Sun produced it. Well, Bat in the Sun is doing a Batman short film, and Jason got cast to play Batman in it, which is really cool. So he was telling me about that. So excited to have those guys join us. And then finally, Steven Costantino played the Gamorrean Guard in Star Wars Return of the Jedi, will also be joining us as well. So pretty excited about that event. It's going to be 3 days of comic cards and toys. It's WrestleMania weekend. We'll have viewing parties. We'll have live wrestling at the event. We'll have activations, fun things, and another thing for people to do that weekend. Near the Strip, and giving locals an opportunity to get a little bit more involved with WrestleMania weekend, because as Brett can tell you, getting to some of those activations that they do, because there's WrestleCon, which is kind of like the autograph signing session. That's really what it is, right? It's like 5 vendors and there's more vendors than that, but it feels like 5 vendors and then just a bunch of signers, right? But Brett can tell you guys that for WrestleMania weekend last year, this weekend will be a lot of fun, and the reason it'll be fun is because the Unrivaled show is going to be that pop culture event where it's kind of all inclusive for everyone to come, but at the same time, this weekend is the second highest traveled weekend of 2025 in Las Vegas with WrestleMania, right behind CES. And coming back in 26, we will now have a show that will be held at the Ahern. So April 17th to the 19th, the Ahern will be hosting the Unrivaled show. And we're calling it the Suplex Edition, being WrestleMania weekend. And so beyond the people that I mentioned, also I know 2, potentially 3 that are sitting here on this panel. We'll see if we can talk Erik into coming out. But we know that the 2 of you guys, Brett and Brendan, will be holding down the stage hosting and doing some of the. What do you want to call yourself, Brett? Is that like on location reporter, like
correspondent?
Well, I mean,
it could vary. Yeah, like if I'm doing that aspect of it, that side of it, definitely. Correspondent / stage host.
Can we just call him my taco runner? Can he just go and get tacos 3-4 times a day?
Or the slices of pizza that are.
I got a question though. You went with Suplex, the Suplex edition, but one of your main wrestling stars is Greg the Hammer Valentine. You couldn't go with the Figure 4 edition?
No, I thought about that. We did, but I like the Suplex edition because it's just like we're taking, and it's an all collectible show, and it's
what was the knee pad or the shin guard that Rugged Ronnie Garvin used to wear to bust Greg Valentine's Figure 4? What was it called? It was like the something shit.
I don't remember that. That's great though, and that's a good callback to that. And
back then,
it's funny too because Greg is one of those dudes that look. He ran his body through the ringer. Let's first and foremost, let's explain that to people so you understand. Greg is you can tell like the years and toll that he put on his body and the things that he did. But at the same time, Greg is one of those dudes that he will sit there with you and just have a conversation
nonstop. Steve, the first time I ever worked with you when we were doing that convention a few years back, the Unicon, that was my first time getting to talk to him on the stage. And this was before I met Brendan. And there were a few professional wrestlers at that event. Kevin Nash was there. There were Jake the Snake Roberts was there. But the most interesting conversation I got to have was with Greg the Hammer Valentine, because the second I brought him up from wherever his little, his setup was to the main stage, or to at least the broadcast stage, because in that setup at the World Market Center, we had kind of a 2-stage setup, a broadcast stage and a main stage. And when I brought him over to the broadcast stage, we started talking, and I had to remind myself we weren't on air yet, because he's so genuine in terms of what those types of, and he started asking me about like broadcasting and what the stuff I was doing out here. He's so genuine, and he's so like, interested in hearing about the person he's talking to. You can tell that's why he was such a great storyteller, because those elements carry over in the conversation. I took a knife edge chop from him, and it was awesome.
Nice.
Like it was hard. It was hard.
Wait. You're telling me that I have the opportunity to get chopped by Greg the Hammer Valentine?
If we're both on stage, I will even bring that up. I'm not expecting him to remember, but I will say, Greg the Hammer, legend, legend in the flesh. Last time I saw you, you gave me a knife edge chop to the chest. Can you do the same honor for my buddy Brent over here? And I guarantee you he'll oblige.
Yes. Yep. Okay.
It was awesome.
See, it was awesome. I was saying I was going to be there, but I was still kind of on the fence. But that seals it for me, as I can get a red hand
be there, get out of
on my bare chest.
There you go, Steve.
Hey,
Greg the Hammer Valentine.
I'll tell you,
he's awesome. What a jet.
It's funny. So yeah, we looks like we ran a little bit into it. So unfortunately, it doesn't look like we have time for Paul Vato right now. But when we come back from this break, we're gonna get into a lot of stuff. We're gonna jam a bunch of stuff into segment 2, and maybe, just maybe, we'll hear from Paul Vato. Stay here, right here on the C3 Pod.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
And welcome back to the C3 Pod. Of course, I'm Steve Johnston, the current Toy Expert History Pawn Star. Brendan Allen, Comic-Con.com senior editor with us. Brett Lawson, not in the death garage. That's Escaped. An interesting thing. Escaped. And we do get joined by Erik Amaya. Now, Erik did get a chance to sleep through New Year, so congratulations, sir. He apparently doesn't have the fireworks show that my neighbors think they need to put on.
Not this year because of the rain. It was
yeah, I guess you guys got it pretty good. Yeah. And then, of course, the reason we do the introductions again is because Mr. Paul Vato decided to show up second segment. So welcome in, Mr. Paul Vato. How are you, buddy? How's Chicago? How's mom? How was the holidays? But more importantly, you only get to say 2 sentences. Go ahead.
Amazing and awesome.
All right, moving on.
Sentence number 1. Oh, that's
all right. And moving on now. No, it's great to have everybody back. It's fun to be on the podcast. And Paul, we definitely want to talk to you about your new year and everything. But first, I want to take a minute and talk to you guys about Lava Packs. You can go to lavapacks.com and you can pick up some of the newest mystery packs that Lava Packs has, which includes Disney, Labubu. You got Bo Jackson's Battle Arena and Pokemon. They are scaling big time. It's a fun thing. It's something fun for the family. If you're a collector, there's a lot of opportunities there. And what's great is, guys, $20-$30, you can get a mystery pack and you could hit, a bigger card, a more expensive card. Lava Packs has found a way to make it a very fun, mystery pack in the world of collectibles. And they've got more coming down the line. So I know they've talked about Marvel. They're talking about Star Wars. I would assume at some point they'll have wrestling, UFC. Some of our Patreon conversation just led into the UFC and WWF, WWE. So,
and then we slammed on the brakes. Then we slammed on the brakes right when it got going. We do have a hard
of course we did. And then, this was just a leak to hype the two of you up because look, if you guys get a chance to check out the Patreon, please do. And that is, you'll be able to catch Brendan and Brett going at it in regards to a discussion about whether someone belonged in WWE
wasn't it more so
WWF or UFC.
Wasn't it more so you two going at it, though? Because mostly I agree with them. It was her downfall was her ego and her inability to evolve as a fighter.
Look, but I know is out of the segment that was on Patreon, and the most important part of it, the most important part of that whole thing was we finally found Brendan's.
I was going to say, that's what I was.
So look, we settled.
It's more so Brendan has some beef with Rousey.
I have an iron stomach, so if you're ever having an eating contest that involves hot peppers at a jiu-jitsu event, I'm in for that. But I won't be.
Brendan
doing
is the only guy that I see take his own hot sauce to restaurants that specialize in hot sauce.
That's so
I'd like to go ahead and state that really quick. But again, we want to thank Lava Packs for their support of the program. Of course, make sure you stop by lavapacks.com and check them out. Guys, let's talk about some things really quick. I want to get into Stranger Things. It came back. I think we thought it was going to come back strong. You're seeing it in the world of, I think WWE right now is like doing a whole bunch of Stranger Thing crossover promotion. I saw some really cool graphics that they did. And I know that one of their entries this week that they did was it panned into the ring and then the whole ring and everything flipped upside down. And then they flipped the logos right side up. It was really cool. I think it was for Raw. Definitely fun to see. Just, I love when you get these crossover events and you get, these shows, these major shows that get involved or movies that get involved with some of this, consistent regular program. Because that's what, wrestling is, right? It's appointment TV. Every Monday you've got, matches. You got matches on certain days. So again, pretty cool. But I'm going to let Brendan take it from here and talk to us a little bit about what was going on with Stranger Things this season. And I do want to mention really quick before we get into that is that, Topps is releasing Stranger Things cards, and some of the stuff they're doing is they're putting relics from the show into the card product. So there's one of ones that you can get like prop used, 11 items or whatever it is. But anyways, Brendan, tell us a little bit about Stranger Things. And is this a final season?
This was it. This was the series finale. And what they did, which was really cool, is they did a deal with movie theaters. There were like 500 screens in the U.S. that showed the Stranger Things finale in Dolby Surround, with the big screen and everything, which is very exciting. My middle son and my wife went out to go see it on New Year's. And so it was like you buy a $40 gift card for the snacks, and then you get a ticket in or something like that. It was like $20. I don't remember. I don't know exactly how much they cost, but it's interesting because my kid has never had just free reign to get whatever he wants at the movie theater. We usually go in, watch the film, go home and eat. But yeah, no. So he came home and he puked his guts out because he's eating all the sugary candy and all that he normally doesn't eat. But yeah, no, that was a cool promotion. And then just the thing is, I wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about like your spoiler-free like impressions of the show. And I have some things to say about the show that don't really give anything away. But first of all, these kids are no longer cute. They have all grown up. They're adults. And the thing is, when the show started, it's only been 5 seasons or whatever, but like actual 10 years has gone by or something. Like, and so they've all grown up, and it's just a little weird to me. Like these little kids that you rooted for because they were so adorable and they were doing all this cool stuff now have mustaches and deep voices and stuff. And it's like, I don't know if I like that. And then this season was just so full of just like weird tropes. There's like, I had a dream that we have to look under this one rock and find exactly what we need to solve the problem. And holy shit, under this one rock is the exact thing that we need to solve the problem. And then there was one where they were over and over again, they were like grabbing just random shit like this volleyball is going to be Steve, and this half-eaten pineapple is going to be Hopper. Now, this Tonka truck going through the middle is going to be, and they did that like 6 times. And it's like, okay, I can see doing that once, pulling out the funny props and making it into whatever, but they did it a bunch. And then,
well, I know they do some of that to create time period, right? So they put like certain items to like kind of create the set of being in the time period. You already have a lot of it with their clothing and stuff. And that's one of the things that show does get. They get a ton of nod on how well their costumes are, right? And how well that's executed and everything. So I kind of understand that. And it's a satirical play a little bit on 80s like TV shows.
Oh yeah. Sure.
I don't know how many times you would watch, the Cosby Show or any of those shows from the 80s that you would see the kids, especially the kids, would grab like, a double XL robot would be in the set, and they would like have it and be holding it because that was going to like kind of transpose you back at that time into like the 70s, right? Like 10 years back, or whatever. So I think from that standpoint, that's kind of what their intentions of execution there is. But again, I agree. It was probably a little overdone.
So I think they tried to do a lot of things, and they did some things really well. And there's some things that I kind of went, but I'm glad that it's over, that they're not trying to stretch it out further, because from this point, it's not believable that Elle is innocent. She's like 27, right? It's not believable that this kid, hasn't had these experiences or whatever, because he's like 30. So I'm glad that they ended it. And I think that they tried to throw a lot at the wall. Some of it stuck. Some of it did not so well. I don't think it was a horrible failure, but I think it could have been a little bit more successful, a little bit better planned out, but it's passable. And there's a lot of finales that are not. Look at Game of Thrones, look at some of the ones that ended, and you're just like, no, right? What was it, St. Elsewhere? Everybody's still mad about the kid with the snow globe, right? Or Lost, right? So I think they did a good enough job. I think they could have executed a couple of things a little bit better, but on the whole, it's a pretty good show. It's a pretty good finale. It's a pretty good wrap up for all the feelings.
Do you guys think, because what's that other show? Was it Euphoria? That's taken so long for each season to go into production. The cast is like just aging exponentially, it seems like, right?
Replace all the kids.
Right. Do you feel like that's almost becoming a more like a bigger concern in streaming media? Because in traditional, the way television shows were greenlit back in the day, obviously, if the pilot and the initial season hit, they would greenlight it for a couple more seasons, but you still kind of have a timetable that's going to be in the near and immediate future. With streaming, you don't know when season 2, season 3, season 4 is going to be confirmed. So therefore, by the time you get it, not only does the continuity seem off because the characters are so much older, but it also seems like the show is now taking on a new identity because it's almost like 5 smaller shows within one, as opposed to one comprehensive show with individual seasons. I feel like, and I get why the actual, like the logistics of it all with streaming, it makes sense why that is happening, especially with the legalities of it all. But ultimately, it seems like it's becoming more of a problem, does it not?
So I actually interviewed Carlton Cuse for the second season of Lock and Key, and one of the characters on Lock and Key is like a 10-year-old boy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I literally asked him that question. It's like, how are you guys planning for the fact that, production is slower than how he ages, right?
Yeah.
And he sort of smirked like, oh, we've got a plan for it. And the plan for it was they did seasons 2 and 3 back to back, and they ended the story after season 3. Same
Right.
thing with Sweet Tooth, which also has a boy as the lead. The plan was, let's do 3 seasons, let's shoot them essentially back to back and just be done with it. Because I think Netflix actually learned from Stranger Things that if your cast is kids, you kind of have to do the story as quickly as possible.
Well, if you go back a little bit
or do
further,
like a huge time jump, right? Like, isn't that what Richard Linklater did with his movies? Like, we'll shoot a movie when he's a kid, we'll shoot a movie when he's a teenager, we'll shoot a movie when he's an adult. But that's like a 30-year ambitious type of project, right?
but
what's
going
crazy
back
is
a
when
bit further
Go ahead.
to like How I Met Your Mother, they shot all of the kids' reactions in the first season because they didn't know if it was going to go 3 seasons, 5 seasons, or 10 seasons, and it ended up going like 7. And those kids would have grown into adulthood. So all of their reactions and people that knew them and then knew that we're in the show, and they're like, "How does it end?" They're like, "I don't fucking know. We recorded that 10 years ago."
Literally.
Well, and it's
like a
funny
different-
too, is I think when
different
you're
life.
talking about that, you even have companies like Disney that are doing animated stuff, like Toy Story, and they still age they're aging the kid throughout the releases of Toy Story. So you're kind of growing up with him and
The
everything.
audience
So
is growing.
I
right?
don't think this is something new. I think this is something that, for years we've known. And in fact, Paul, I think that when we had your buddy on from Married with Children, that, he talked a little bit there about how they filmed a little bit longer in some periods just to make sure that like the kids still kind of were kids, right?
Because he brought that up, but it's how do you address that? How do you know how long the show's gonna go? Like you mentioned, and I've always wanted to do. Now it's too late, but some kind of movie that way where I'd film myself throughout the years and then use that in a final movie and a final product. But you're right, that's a 30-year endeavor. And with these kids, now it's a man playing the role of a child, pretty much. So, I don't know what the answer is as far as from the production side.
Simpsons started on December 17th, 1989, and those kids are still in elementary school.
Yeah.
Cartoons. I mean,
In fairness, I will tell you that
Stewie Griffin still hasn't had his second birthday in Family Guy, and then his first birthday was like in '99 or something like that.
their team, though, too, of voice actors were all like middle-aged adults when they started, or late 20s adults when they started. So
I loved seeing Yeardley Smith on Herman's head as one of the voices inside of his head. And seeing the face behind Lisa Simpson, because as soon as she starts talking, that's Lisa.
Right.
Yeah, it's so funny that, and iconic for sure. But, Stranger Things, I think, really did a great job of like filling the need of creating something that hit your teenage population with interest, right? Because there's not been a lot of great shows that have been built for that. There's a lot of stuff that's like family friendly that probably leans a little bit more towards younger kids, unless like kids get really into Star Wars or really into Marvel. But outside of that, there hasn't been a lot that's come along that really has, built into it.
Especially on television, right? Because like we'll see it in movies, we'll see it in other IPs, we'll see it in other mediums, but like television, it's hard to do just because of the timetable, everything, and the fact that certain genres of TV are kind of dying out in general. It seems like Stranger Things was like the one thing, and I'm not a huge Stranger Things guy, but like it's from everyone who I know and everyone who has like consumed it, it seems like it's one of the last, or at least like one of the most recent and rare examples of like a monolith, right? Like to where everyone culturally could kind of invest and get in on board with it. And when you look at what it did with the Kate Bush song a few years ago, I mean, like it would, I guess the gaps in between seasons almost give this like refresher. So the season almost seems like an event itself. So there's also this fear of missing out type of element, I think, too.
Well, yeah, and it's
interesting.
They nailed the cars, the costumes,
right? The period piece,
even down to things like some of like the prop stuff they use. Like I think it's in season 1 when they use like all the lighting that gets put up. and Winona Ryder's house, right, and gets put up and everything, that like that type of strand of lights actually is not the strand of lights that we have now, right? So they
C3 bulbs.
Exactly. So they did a really nice job of like making sure that like it felt that way. And
although it is funny because I have a friend who was playing D&D at the time, and this season there's a big deal about Will being a sorcerer, and my friend immediately texted me as soon as he started watching, like, the sorcerer class didn't exist in 1987. And it was just like, okay, great, that's nice for you because you were there. That's great. I don't know.
Historical inaccuracy. I love it.
Yeah, it was. Hey, that's you took the helmet off the Mandalorian right there. I mean, that's
right. Sacrilege.
That's what that was.
Taboo.
The helmet off the Mandalorian. No, but I thought it was cool, and yeah, the fact that they incorporated things like D&D and some of the other nerdy stuff, into the show, also was cool because some of that stuff is relevant now, or becoming relevant again. D&D is a good one where D&D had a little bit of a fall off there for a while where it wasn't really kind of mainstream, and it's starting to kind of be a little bit more of a mainstream concept again. And I think it has to do a lot with like the trading card games and everything. Yeah. And so, it's pretty cool to see, a show like this get rocking and rolling. But, we talk about stuff from the time period, and we talk about things that have had a foothold on, over the years, that nerdy stuff, whatever it is. In 1988, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came out, and you had Kevin Eastman, you had, help me, Eric, I'm having a blank here. His co-writer for it,
right?
Peter Laird. They come up with this comic book of these four, crime-fighting turtles that are born from the sewer, and
which was a spoof on Daredevil.
Yeah, and the initial thing with them was that they all had the same color bandana, and they were just like a crime-fighting group, and then they became personalities. When they became personalities, licensing for toys at the time was a big deal. And you had companies that were fighting over things. You had, Hasbro acquiring Kenner during this time. They were, right in the midst of those deals. This happened, 3 or 4 years after, this time period. You had, Ghostbusters were big. The big real Ghostbusters. All these cartoons were huge. Ninja Turtles, when the cartoon hit, was an absolute success. It was a massive success. Kind of cultural changing in a way. It definitely changed the one thing, and that was how toys were distributed for these shows. See, it's funny. We go back to when Star Wars released, and, the biggest thing that came out of that was, General Mills and Kenner putting together this concept where essentially you were buying the rights to be able to purchase the first 4 figures, right, in the mailway program to sell toys before they even had them. And then it started to change where now, when you had a movie coming out, your toy sets would kind of come along with it. Well, in this particular instance with the Ninja Turtles, they started to do something that no one had never really thought about. And it kind of came over a period of time. You got to think, when we go 88 to now be in 2026, right? It's been some time. I mean, you're talking, we are absolutely looking at a long hold for a toy company on a brand that's not their original license. It wasn't that Playmates created Ninja Turtles. It's that Ninja Turtles was created. They then licensed the concept, and they held that licensing for forever. Well, turns out coming up this year, December 31st, 2026, Playmates has received their formal notification that the licensing agreement will end. Why this is crazy and why this is nuts and why I feel like this is not going to deliver the same way we did is because Mattel has acquired it. And what's interesting about Mattel is that Mattel is very way in advance company, right? They take a long time to produce like a character set of things and then put it out. Even to the fact that they've tried with wrestling to release toys a little closer to, say, an appearance of a character, right? However, how many final appearance Cena figures are in the market right now?
Right? They did one for every show on his last 15
Correct.
or whatever. They did a different figure for every show.
Right. And they did it to time it up. But what's funny is that was not how this was done in the past. And it's because Playmates, when Nickelodeon acquired the licensing, right? Because Nickelodeon owns the licensing on that side of it. Nickelodeon said, you know what we're going to do when we put a cartoon out and we introduce a new character or a version of the Turtles or a version of one of the side characters, whatever it is, we are going to release those figures the same week the first time the episode airs.
Right.
So you as a kid would watch this on TV and go, oh my gosh, this cool new Ninja Turtle came along. And then you'd go in the store and it would be hanging on the pegs. Right. That timing is impressive. And it is one of the things that, because Playmates had such a control on that Ninja Turtle toys market. Don't get me wrong. NECA has had Ninja Turtles. You have a couple different, license holders that had it. Mondo's had it in a different scaling. Like, there's been other toy lines out there. But look, the Ninja Turtle toy that we know, that we grew up with, that most people grew up with, this same scaling, this 4-inch figure.
Number 3. It's image number 3, Eric.
May have changed and they may have become more, more current, more modern, whatever it is. This toy line has always been this, as we see on the screen, right? The original Ninja Turtles, the 4-inch, the accessories, they were fun. They had some novelty to them. Really good character set. They really branched out. They brought characters from the video game into the toy world and made them part of the entire line. NECA has done a really great job with producing their toy line as well. That's a little more articulated, a little bit bigger in scaling. They've done, all the Last Ronins and all this stuff, everything. But this particular scaling and line, Playmates has lost it. And I think what's important is to talk about the significance of this, right? Because in 2021, 8% of Playmates annual sales, so just in 2021, was Ninja Turtles. And in 2022, it was 13%. And in 2023, it jumped to 77%. 24, it was 47%. And for the first 2 quarters of 25 that were reported, it was 36% of their sales. So I think if we were to run down this on a real quick period, in a 5-year period, the Ninja Turtle license and line became the largest portion of sales for Playmate, and it's by a landslide.
Right. And
they are losing this. This is going to be detrimental to this company. This is going to affect their stockholders. This is going to affect other releases they have. And I'm going to tell you, because I know from going to a couple of the show and tells, as I'll call them, that the toy companies hold early in the year each year out at their offices, that you have companies that are coming into this, and I'm just talking toy companies that are become competitive, and Jada Toys is going the other direction. Jada is making more action figures. We've covered, the Street Fighter stuff, right? They have Invincible. They have Mega Man. They have all of these licenses of action figures they're creating, Scooby-Doo, bunch of others, and you see them onboarding them. And what I don't see is big fanfares of licenses that Playmates have picked up. So I just wonder, has Playmates been in trouble for a few years? Because usually when we see someone overproducing, launching, producing all of this stuff, they've done all these, go back to the 80s toys, reprisals, the, reissues, all of these things. Were they just running at this to try to put up as much money as they possibly can for an inevitable fall? Brendan, what are your thoughts there?
Well, it's interesting because you said Mattel picked up the license, and I didn't even realize that the second story that I put into this segment is also Mattel. I wonder if Mattel is just making such a big grab that they offered so much money that when Playmates license came up, and because they've been in negotiation for a while, this has been a story that they haven't been able to reach an agreement. And I wonder if the offer from Mattel was just so much bigger that Playmates either didn't know to match it or couldn't match it. Because Mattel is making a big sweep, because the next thing is about DC licensing, and that's massive for Mattel. So we'll get into that in a minute, but I just wonder if, they had a 10-year license, 15-year license, 20-year license or whatever, and they just couldn't renew it at the rate that Mattel was offering.
And one thing I think is important for him to mention, look,
Eric's now they're being super patient. He can mute everybody and just talk.
It's not official that Mattel has taken it. It is understood that Mattel is the one that is receiving the license, because what they'll do is probably Q4, end of Q3, they'll make official announcements on who's moving forward, and that line will also go, or it might even be one of those things that maybe at Toy Fair this year you have a preliminary rollout of some castings or whatever it is. Right. Erik, I know that you had some comments here.
Yeah, no, just thinking about whether or not Playmates is in trouble. Kind of their big other successful action figure line back in the day was Star Trek.
Yep.
And they got that Star Trek license back 5 years ago, and gave up on it after 2 years. Like, they just could not make it work again. In hindsight, that does feel like there's a problem within the company itself. If its two most successful toy licenses just stopped working, and they don't have the money to cover whatever Mattel is offering Viacom. But I also think there's a Viacom connection too, because they basically ended the Mutant Mayhem thing too. Like, Mutant Mayhem, that movie was successful, that TV show was working, and Viacom was just like, no, we don't want to do that anymore. I think there might be kind of can we get a back to basics approach that they're looking at. They might want to rewind the clock, even though it feels like every 5 years they kind of rebuild what the Ninja Turtles are.
Yeah.
Kind of knowing where Viacom is going right now, it feels like the idea is, what do we make the Ninja Turtles what it looked like in '89?
Well, and I'm thinking too that there's this continual thing we've seen, right? Like, they lost the Power Rangers franchise a few years ago, right? They still have stuff that they're doing, but it's not the same scaling and being able to do some of those things. And they kind of rolled the same thing out, right? They did this whole, reissue reprisal line of the original stuff just to try to generate some quick, early, easy sales. And
it makes you,
I don't know. It feels odd.
It makes you wonder if the Mutant Mayhem stuff they really didn't all along fully believe would work, and it was kind of a pleasant surprise. So now that they actually have somewhat benefited off of it, they think, okay, now we can actually go and do the thing that we've always wanted to do, or at least in the immediate sense have wanted to do. Because like Erik just said, they keep repackaging and rebranding these characters every 5 years. Maybe they just thought this was something we could throw out there to see if it sticks. It did, but now that it has stuck, they don't want to keep, they don't want to double down on that rather than just go with a new approach, because now they feel the brand has momentum once again.
Mm-hmm. Well, Paul, that when companies like this, sometimes the restructuring is going back and kind of like, acquiring new licenses and rebooting your company to, maybe change for all we know, maybe Playmates' plan is they're going to be a, Japanese toy manufacturer moving forward. Who knows, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. But you think that you would have maybe a plan in place if you're going to take over the licensing or get your licensing back and not give up on it so quick. It's so who knows what's going to happen. Besides, I thought when you said Playmates, I thought you were talking about Playboy. So I was a little out of it.
Paul started,
that's a whole other Ninja Turtle line.
Paul, what's funny is that Paul finally can justify his search history to his mom and say, "No, I was
looking up Ninja Turtles.
Some
Reddit gave me homework. I was looking it up.
No, I was looking at Playmates. I was looking.
No, I did actually text Paul the links to both or to articles on both of these subjects, so that he would have stuff to say in this second segment. Because he usually first segment he's good, third segment he's got stuff to say, but that second segment he's mostly silent. So I sent him the articles, and now I'm just wondering, Paul, did you read the articles or were you reading Playboy?
I was reading. You said Playmates. I went to Playboy. I just online.
Hey, at least we got some commentary. That's all that we want, ultimately, Paul. As long as you give us something, we don't care what the source material is. It's good.
100%. And I like the fact that you guys know that I'm somehow using my mom's computer to be on the show. So yeah.
Well, because your audio is not all over the place. We can see you clearly. It's not bouncing because it's not your damn cell phone propped up on your knee. So this is clearly a much better setup.
I had no idea you guys had so many issues with me. Jesus. Okay.
Paul's like, was that the last
that's
episode?
Just the technical stuff, Paul. We don't have time for the rest of it.
We had our grievances like 3 weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, no, and I wanted to get into this too. So, Senior Vice President of Entertainment Partnerships for Mattel, Nick Karamanos, he said it's an incredibly proud milestone to welcome DC back to Mattel. We look forward to leveraging our Mattel playbook, approach to brand management, product design, and innovation to bring DC's popular characters to life across all channels. The renewed partnership will reflect our shared passion, engaging aspiring fans and collectors of all ages. Now, this is an interesting one, but it's one that most people should have saw coming, because what was a huge topic for us last year? And you know, it's funny. We actually, when we were talking about our end of the year wrap for stuff, I realized after that episode, we missed one big deal that we talked about multiple times, and that was Diamond Distribution's bankruptcy and everything. And this is a direct benefit of that. Why is that? Because Diamond Toys had held licensing in different scaling sizes for the DC line, and McFarlane Toys owned the 7-inch licensing for these characters. And what you have now is you have DC getting this Mattel, partnership back going together. There's pros and cons to this, as there is anything. For some reason, it seems like Mattel will always sculpt figures really close when it comes to DC, but fans always find issues with the figures for some reason or another, which is why I have yet to see DC leap Marvel with the Marvel Legends line. But over the last few years, and I'm going to call it a little bit of corporate greed, and I'm going to call it, some of the tariff situations and overproductions, lack of being able to sell, online competitiveness, going direct in the market, all of these things that Hasbro have done, right, to try to make a little bit more bang off their buck. Their short-sightedness might have opened the door for Mattel, because something comes with this. And when I mention this, Eric's head's going to start like a bobblehead, right? And that is, Mattel is now going to have the rights to produce Absolute Batman toys. And those are going to destroy the marketplace, because that has grown to be such a monster that all of those Absolute characters are going to be massive. So they haven't said this, but I will tell you now, you can anticipate at Toy Fair this year, expect Mattel to be announcing the Absolute DC line. I guarantee you they're going to do it, because they can't afford to miss it. Mattel has been
knowing Todd's very, very, very fast way of doing things, he still might be able to sneak out a couple of those Absolute Batmans. That might
it's possible, but again, it'll be 7.
He's already thrown in the towel. He announced on Twitter that they're making no new molds. Like he's already said, I'm done with this. So yeah, because I brought that up in the team chat, and Tony, who's into figures, he does our figures for the site. He reviews actually TMNT, Masters of the Universe figures, all that stuff. But he's saying, I was like, oh, I wonder if McFarlane's still going to be able to make the 7-inch, and he goes, probably not. He already said he's not going to.
Well, yeah, because the situation that you run into with the difference between the 6 and 7-inch scaling, it's not as much of a difference to really matter unless you have 5 or 6 of the 7-inch up against 5 or 6 of the 6-inch is the only time you really notice it. Otherwise, some of those character scalings are close enough anyways that visually they kind of work together. McFarlane's done a great job with the line. They rebirthed the DC toy line. They did some really neat things with their, Build-A-Figures and building accessory things. And, which, look, that's a playbook out of the Hasbro line, which really came from Toy Biz. Let's talk about where that originated, right? Give credit where credit's due. that whole build a character and everything, that worked really well for them. The way they waved it out, the way they did their exclusives really felt like exclusives. They didn't feel like they were just grasping at straws of like trying to put an exclusive random figure out. You know, they did this platinum line, and, you know, they had, you know, different figures you could get, gold labels and, you know, whatever it was. And there were, you know, a little bit more chase component, and they did these things right with the line. Just at the end of the day, and as much as I hate to say it, is no matter how hard McFarlane tries, he can just never leap some of the properties that these bigger companies have owned, Hasbro, Mattel. And I'd argue that you've got companies like MGA that are starting to step up, and MGA is, you know, a huge company that are showing that their licenses and the stuff that they have and stuff that's coming out and that they're releasing are competitive in sculpting and delivery and boxing and artwork and all of this stuff. So, you know, I really feel like this right here could help fix some of DC's deficiencies, at least in the boy toy market, because they just did a huge set of layoffs, and they laid off senior people. There are people that have been with Mattel forever that were in big positions that, as of today, no longer work at Mattel.
Well, didn't Brennan just say in the comments, right, that in our little chat room, like this could potentially change the landscape entirely, right?
I think so.
That's my take on this is, you know, there were layoffs and things because I think there's a whole new vision, and I don't know how long Nick has been in charge. I was just looking at the thing, but we have a slide for the Mattel playbook. And if you look at it, this is a playbook straight out of any corporate, like, you know, they're sitting there looking at their map. They're looking at where it's going to take them. They're looking at like all the steps they need to take, scale your portfolio, grow the franchise brands, advance e-commerce and DTC, optimize operations, expand content, consumer production. So what I take away from this is that they are really looking more at like global products and products for all ages, because they realize that your collector is going to spend more money per piece, but they're not going to buy as many pieces. And your kids are going to buy more pieces, but they're not going to buy the expensive pieces. And by taking over action figures, play sets, accessories, role play products, and adult collectibles as their target markets with an S on the end, they're not just getting the Saturday morning cartoon fans, they're also getting the people that grew up with the stuff. They're getting the people who are reading the Absolute line. They're getting the people, whatever. So they're expanding their target audience across generations and across gender and across, economic situation, to have something to offer everybody from the Batman line, from DC, from, these toys. And they've even got the TTRPG space in here, which makes Anton, our TTRPG D&D guy, super happy, because they're going to be making cards and they're going to be making games and things. So it feels like they're really just trying to come out as a juggernaut, and every single thing that they can make money off of, they're trying to do the KISS route. They're going to be making DC coffins, and people are going to be buying them. So you'll see that at Costco.
Well,
next week.
they're having to scale that, and the reason they're having to scale that is because, look, go walk your toy department in your local Target or Walmart, right? Your WWE figures are hanging on the peg, right? Because the price point's too much for kids, and collectors want one, not 12. Right. So collectors aren't going out and buying every single one of them up. Right. I think, when you're talking, things like a new strategy and kind of a position on how, they're going to do it. Look, they've got the Mattel Creations, right, which is essentially a crowd-funded concept that they have, or a subscription service concept that they have. You have Hasbro has their own, version of this where they create exclusive things that get crowdfunded and whatever it is. You're going to have a lot more lines, I believe, from them going this route, because they're trying to go more direct to consumer. I mean, they pointed it out right there in the slide. And when you have a call out from a company like this saying direct to consumer, pause. If you hold a wholesale license, which, by the way, for Mattel is very hard to get direct, just to point that out, right? They do not give direct distribution out. They make you go through one of the distributors, like an Entertainment Earth or Southern Hobby or GTS, one of these companies, to be able to purchase their items. They are now circumventing them and coming up with more product. And I believe there will be a larger amount of product that will be available through Mattel Creations, because they understand that since they're going to make these items, that they're probably going to produce less of the figures, but make them a higher price point. Look, we talked, if you guys will remember this, about 6 months ago, we talked about a Spider-Man that was coming out. That was a $50 Spider-Man, superposable, full in depth, Marvel Legends figure. And it was a $50 price point. Whereas in 2019, right? So right as everything was kicking off, your Marvel Legends were $21.99. They're now $27.99 on average, right? And that inflation in that amount of time in a 5-year period, that's a pretty big amount. That's a 25% to 30% increase over that time period, where naturally you should have had somewhere around a 9% natural increase in inflation. So when you're saying, in my opinion, it's 3.5x, and then you look at what this is, I think this is a smart play from them. You get into control. It costs you more to produce figures when you're producing less of them per figure. So why don't you put more time into it, make it a much more articulated and involved figure, and then put that out there on a higher price point in the marketplace. So it's an interesting play. And again, if in fact, from what I'm understanding, Mattel is in fact acquiring the Ninja Turtles.
That's massive.
And
in light of the other story, going through and talking about what Mattel is doing and what they're trying to do in this space, that TMNT thing is bigger than I even knew it was, because I didn't realize that it tied into the story.
Well, and you've got a couple other licenses that I think that are coming up too. I know Fortnite license is coming up, and that is something that has not gotten the run on it was supposed to. McFarlane had the license for a little bit and did, a little bit with it early on. But now that universe is so big and you have all these celebrities and all of this stuff and everything, I think that is such a big, big deal. And, when it comes to this type stuff, Paul, when you start talking about licenses and you start talking about, things that companies are acquiring, we talked about Funko recently, about Funko has too many licenses, right? And, when is too many? What is not enough? How should this be regulated? I mean, there's a whole conversation for us in the sports card world and the trading card world on this exact topic as well. But I think it's important to talk about this in toys.
Well, what are the existing licenses though?
Well, okay. So they have a bunch of big original stuff, right? So when you're talking about like Masters of the Universe, that was something that was, in-house created. They built that. Obviously they own Barbie. That's been a massive one for years. They own Hot Wheels, right? But when you start thinking about all the licenses that they own to this, just think about from the Hot Wheels side alone, of how many different licenses are out there for stuff they have. They have Minecraft. They have Batman, right? They have DC. They have Master Universe, which obviously they own, so Hot Wheels has that. They cross over these licenses they own to a bunch of the different toy stuff that they have, and they go and they acquire these licenses to be able to do all of these different things. So when you start thinking about these big licenses and say you've got, I don't know, Power Rangers with Mattel, right? Go down the list. I think is if I'm not mistaken, and maybe I'm wrong, it might be Hasbro still owns it. Who owns the why am I drawing a blank? Oh my gosh. Dinosaurs. Why can't I think of the name? Jurassic World, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if they still have some action in some of the Jurassic Park stuff. Like you go down and there is things, and it's funny because like Erik even mentions in there, he goes, "Doesn't Mattel have a Marvel license?" Yeah, they do. It isn't for 6-inch action figures, but they do have it for like Hot Wheels. They do have it where they have crossovers with Barbie. They have a few different things and different scalings, because if you're kind of new to the licensing world in toys, and I'll just give a quick little synopsis on this, but everything's done in scalings, right? So if you have a 4-inch action figure, you can have a 5-point articulated figure and someone can own that license. And then you can have a 25-point articulated figure, and someone can own that license. And they've really broke it down to be able to try to give these licenses up. Well, what happens is a lot of these companies now, especially Hasbro's getting into it to where they're trying to sit there and go through their licenses and saying, hey, let's buy up all of these licenses to be able to create all of these things as well. And they've done that over the years. I just wonder if maybe they scale some of that stuff back and they get more up on top of the, current licenses of really focusing on the lines that are making money, right? And cut back on the stuff that just really isn't. There's an action figure line out there. It's called the Hero line, and it's like a 12-inch 5-point articulated figure. It's literally the arms raised like this. The arms don't even bend, right? They just go with the shoulder joint, the hips, and the head turns. They're like a $9 figure. They're super hollow. They're made to be for kids, and they never sell. They just
what's that one? What is it? The Great Garloo? Wasn't that one of those where it's just like it was like a 24-inch figure, but all it did was it articulated at the shoulders and the hips, and it's like, why did people even buy this? It's like garbage plastic.
Well, again, in the 70s, 60s, 70s.
But like just going down through their brand portfolio, it's funny because you see the ones that pop out. They've got Uno, they've got Barbie, they've got Hot Wheels, they've got WWE, they've got Barney, right? But then they've got crap on here that's the Bathhouse Brass. Like what the hell even is that? So they've got a bunch of like heavy hitters in the brand portfolio, but then there's also stuff on here that it's just like, dude, those are Pez. Nobody buys Pez. Why is Pez even still made? Right? Like, but they still exist. You only see Lifesavers.
Ridley Scott makes his Pez movie. When Ridley Scott,
you only see Lifesavers at Christmas, but they still make those things. Nobody ever buys them except in the month of December, but they still make them.
And they do have Jurassic World, so I was correct there.
They do have Jurassic World.
One time,
but they also have Pedal Pretty and Pictionary and Pingu.
Look, a lot of their stuff has to do with like games, books, things
a lot
like
of
that.
games on
They
here.
create cartoons that they create. One of my favorite licenses that they have that I wish would get really a lot more done with it is Street Sharks.
Storybots. They have Storybots. That's dude. So Storybots is one of those shows. It's like super goofy, but it's very, very educational. My kids were watching that a couple years ago, but I didn't know they were still making it. But yeah, no, they've got the license, and it looks like it's a Netflix exclusive too. So Street Sharks.
Yeah. So when you see these licenses and you go through this and you understand it and you just have an idea, I just feel like maybe they're at a point where they're kind of looking at it and saying, okay, hey, what is working right now? And let's get that going, because we have to chase down revenue numbers to get our revenue back corrected. I mean, Paul, how many times have you seen companies have to restructure and change to try to chase down a revenue set because they got themselves all kinds of backwards, right? Paul's apparently no longer with us.
I think Paul's on that other meeting. Like I'm gonna pull the curtain back a little bit.
I have a feeling too.
Paul's multi-podcast.
Paul actually is a panelist and a moderator, and he's doing a thing in Chicago where he's going to be moderating a panel on yes and some stand-up and improvisational theory and stuff. And so the thing is, we give Paul a hard time, but he's actually pretty important in the space that he occupies. And right now he's on another call that's going to take a few minutes where he has to sort some things out for that moderation that he's doing at what's the convention called? Shit, he put it in the notes here. I can't remember, but Podfest, right? So talking about podcasting, talking about improvisational comedy and stuff like that. So we're going to give Paul a little bit of a break right now and not give him too hard of a time.
Can we talk about how much you guys have put in the chat today? Can we discuss that really quick? I shouldn't have to scroll to find.
To say the least.
I just want to throw that out there. Okay, real quick. I get that there's a bunch of writers in this room, right? Which, self-excluded. You guys don't have to write novels in there. I just want to point that out. You don't have to.
I don't write novels. It's just cues. It's just go back, because you guys don't read the ROS, the run of show. So I have to put notes from the run of show in the show notes so that you guys will actually read them.
Yeah. Look, I'm just saying that. And I want to bring this up because I think this is a good time to touch base on this. Is that, right now you have. Because this is something that we talked about maybe incorporating, and I think this is a good time to bring this up. But with Mattel acquiring some of the things they're doing, making some of the positional changes they're doing, and you're watching these companies, change the scale, you have an FTC investigation that's going into right now PSA in grading because they acquired Beckett and all of this that's going on. So there's a senator somewhere that's initiated this FTC investigation to look into them, right? To see if they're becoming a
bought a card that got graded last year, and now he's mad about it. So he's got a hair up his ass, and he's introducing legislation.
Yeah, well, no, what it is though is that it's a combination of things, right? So Collectors is the parent company that owns PSA, that owns SGC, because they acquired the number 3 grading company last year, right? And then they went and acquired Beckett, which is considered the number 2 grading company. So now they're being investigated for creating a monopoly, right? And then it's going to open up the doors to other things, because what's happening is that even though we knew this was coming, it wasn't until it was in front of us. And that is that this year, the Panini has lost the licenses to the NFL and to the NBA. And Fanatics has it now, which means now Topps owns the licenses to those. And the reason I point that out is because this repositioning, and when you're readjusting things, when you have a company that is losing licenses, like we talked about with Playmates, now we talk about with Panini, what do these companies do? And this becomes, I'm just going to say it, someone's going to be knocking on Playmates' door. Can we acquire you? Right? Because that's what's happening with Fanatics. And that, Michael Rubin has gone out and said, we're not trying to acquire Panini. Get out of here. They're holding autograph rights for certain players that Fanatics don't hold. And trust me, Fanatics did a great job of snatching up all of the autograph signers over the last few years to be exclusive with them. But there are some that aren't, right? Like Luka Doncic in basketball is still exclusive this year to Panini. So even though they'll be making unlicensed NBA product, you'll only be able to get Luka Doncic autos there. Like you won't find it in the Topps product. So, you start looking at it, you're starting to say, like, has this direct-to-consumer concept, because all of these companies have gone with this, has the direct-to-consumer concept, is it pushing to thin out the smaller company? And are we going to be looking at big threes in our major collectible markets moving forward? I think that's a fair question to ask when you really think about it. What small companies in the different collectible markets, and we're going to even get into comic books with this, what comic book publisher is going to get acquired by another big publisher? Because there's some out there that are probably seeing some trouble. And I don't know where all the, I'd have to look at all the financial breakdown and everything. But I just bring this up because I think that this is important, that while we talk about this in the world of toys, this isn't a concept that we shouldn't be discussing when it comes to, especially in the retail world, right? Because I don't know if a lot of you guys saw this, but you have a bunch of the Foot Locker locations are closing. Repositioning that inventory to Dick's Sporting Goods, because Dick's Sporting Goods now owns them, and I think it's Finish Line and some of the other retail components.
Well, I mean, part of that, doesn't that come from the direct-to-consumer stuff that we were talking about a minute ago? Is like, I have an app now that tells me when new Nike shoes are dropping, and it tells me the sales and stuff like that. And I can order from any store in the United States direct from my phone, and it's going to be on my door in 3. But what do I need a Foot Locker for?
And that's where this is going. And it's an interesting thing, because is this becoming such a component that, let's ask the question, how long before brick and mortar is no longer?
I think there is a level, there's a level of wanting to see things and to have that, suggestive sales, end caps and violators and stuff that you have or whatever. But there are some things with like shoes. I know which lines of Nikes fit me. And when I see a new colorway come out, I know that the LeBrons are going to fit me better than the Jordans. So I don't order from the Jordan line. If I do, I have to get a half a size bigger. Like, I'm very familiar with the brand. So when you have stuff that's been around for so long, like Nike shoes, Converse shoes, I know exactly how they fit. I know exactly how long they're going to last. But there's other things that I think retail brick and mortars really excel at, and comic books is one of them, because you go looking for Absolute Batman, and right next to it's Absolute Wonder Woman, and it's got this amazing cover. You want to pick them both up now. So I don't think it's going to entirely go away, but there are certain things that are just so familiar that you can buy with a keystroke and be absolutely confident in the transaction and know what you're going to get, versus some of the other things that, like, I've never seen this Fugler before. but it was on the shelf next to the other things that I was looking at or whatever. So it's an impulse buyer, you know.
Does it have the same mustache you do? I'm just curious. But
no, this is so they started doing B-level celebrities in the Fugler line. They've got a bunch of licenses, actually. They've got Care Bears and they've got a DC. This is the Paul Vato improvisational podcast panel version of Fugler. And you can see, you know, they got his teeth right. They got his eyes right and everything, and his greasy hair. So
I was going to say it's super screen accurate. So, you know, done very, very well. Well, guys, when we come back, we're going to talk about the new comic books that are coming out this week. But I don't think we're closed on this topic. I think that this has a bigger discussion for us, and probably in the near future, because I think that we should really look at it. Because from my standpoint, I think that you're going to see a position with some of these companies that I would not be surprised if you start looking into these different collectible groups, and there are going to be certain companies that are going to stand out amongst the masses. And one of them that I'll point out in the trading card world is Tom Brady's Card Vault, right? They just opened a Las Vegas store, and they're getting ready to open others. They're talking about opening over 100 locations. And is that going to be a concept that's going to come in and people are going to be like, oh, well, I'm just going to shop at the one regular store. And then on the flip side, you look at companies like GameStop, who has announced they're closing more locations and their business model has changed and all of this stuff. So I think we should really look into this, because the scope of retail as it is today, coming into 2026, I believe by the end of 2026 is going to be a heavily changed marketplace. I think you're going to see a lot of things happen across the board. But we'll be back here in just a moment to talk new comic books on the C3 Pod.
Peppermint Patty's the worst. Comic-Con.com, your daily comic convention online. Insightful reviews, previews of the comics, toys, and games you need to know. Delightful chats with luminaries from around the geek spectrum. In print, on video, and everywhere in between. The show never stops on Comic-Con.com.
And welcome back to the C3 Pod. We are going to be talking about the new comic books that are coming out. But before, as we start the new year, we want to welcome in back a good old sponsor, and that's the TSP Baking Company here in Las Vegas. We want to thank them for their support of the program. The team up there in the Northwest absolutely makes some of the best bakery items in town: cookies, custom cakes, cupcakes, you name it. If you got a sweet tooth, stop by, see our friends at the TSP Baking Company. Make sure you tell them that the C3 Pod sent them. And I think we're going to have some free cookies and stuff to give away during some of the shows coming up for people to be able to go try TSP. TSP, again, absolutely incredible. They've got some really fun stuff, guys. They make a taco cake that looks just like a taco. Right?
Do they have a little hot sauce bottle that looks just like the one in my pocket?
I'm sure that you can get some accessorized stuff and everything. Their team is just real creative. And Carrie, the owner, I absolutely love her. I think she's one of the best business women as far as the mindset goes to running your business. So again, we want to thank TSP for joining us and of course being a big support of the C3 podcast. And then also this segment is presented by our friends at the Nerd Bar Las Vegas, second floor of the Neonopolis. Make sure you stop by, see them and the weekly events they have coming up. They have all kinds of stuff on a regular basis. Whether you just want to go get some craft cocktails, you want to play some games, you want to do some fun, not serious, but fun bowling, or you want to play some video games, that place is all set up for you. Good memorabilia and more. So make sure you stop by and see them. But we got a bunch of books this week. I'm going to let Brendan run with it because Paul has lost that ability to present those at this point. So Brendan, tell us about the book.
We could have done it, but you know what? We've got the heart out today because a couple of our guys have to be places. So I guess it's good that we didn't let Paul just ramble on these. The first one up is Dungeons of Doom #1. This is a 3-issue series set after One World Under Doom. They just wrapped that one up. So they're trying to tie up some loose ends here, and I guess they're trying to pull this a little bit more into continuity by having things jive a little bit more with the mainstream continuity that's happening with the other books. In the aftermath of One World Under Doom, with Doom's castle empty and masterless, the superpowers of the world race to claim and control the untold power and technology that wait inside. But when an explosion sends them all plummeting into a dungeon labyrinth that none of them knew was there, what begins as an arms race becomes a terrifying game of survival. I don't think we need to say a lot about this one. Like I said, they're just wrapping up the One World Under Doom arc that they had, which was an event that, I mean, there are a couple good books that were in there or whatever. There was a couple good things that came out of it, but just generally, I think that was kind of a flat, what do we call it?
Event.
Event. Yes.
Event.
Why could I not think of that word?
Well, you know,
That
and
word
this
event.
is what's funny is that this is falling in line with also kind of like the wrap of the Ultimates line from Marvel as well, which tells us that they're about to jump into a direct Doom storyline that's going to correlate into the movie coming out. And if you saw the new preview, there's a little teaser preview out there that shows that the X-Men will in fact return for Doom and Doomsday.
All four, three of the four trailers have already been released, and the fourth one's
what's
actually
really cool
leaked.
is that end scene shot that they have in the promo where it's Cyclops and he has his glasses on.
Yeah.
And
in the
that,
blue and yellow suit. It's awesome.
That is what I think fans really wanted to see. Like, as excited as they are about, how sinister Doom can be, which is, don't trust me, that by itself is cool. Having the X-Men involved is going to be big. So what they're doing is they're wrapping some of these books that they had, and then they're going to start, moving out into some of their characters, like this next book, and that is Null #1. And the reason I bring this up is because Null obviously was presented in Venom, right, as that protagonist, and we get that first, cinematic versions of Null. You've got a movie,
Antagonist.
Yeah, antagonist, protagonist, whatever. I get it.
Whatever, despite them being, polar opposite.
He just wanted to correct me.
It's the exact opposite of what you said, but yeah, whatever.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The antithesis.
Right. Antagonist. Anyways,
although behind it is kind of a commentator because he sends the creatures to go find Venom, and then every so often he kind of riffs on what's going on. And that's
his little play-by-play
appearance in that movie.
Well, he's kind of playing God, right? As far as
what are these flying petroleum sperms that are all over this cover?
Those are symbiotes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Noah was created by Donny Cates. Donny has not been writing for a while because he had an accident, but Al Ewing is going to be on this one. We know Al. Mr. Ewing is doing great stuff on, what is he on, Venom?
I think he's on Venom.
Yeah. But this is most likely a lead-in into the Queen in Black series, which is going to feature Hela this upcoming summer. It says, Return of the King, weakened from his last death, trapped by the enemy he never expected. The god of the void waits in a cage once again. His captors think Null has nothing to fight back with, but in Null's hands, nothing is a weapon. Null means nothing, right? So that's clever. And there's a greater weapon out there waiting for the King in Black to take it and to take his revenge.
Now, I know that this cover is cool, but I know that there's a very cool Fan Expo exclusive for New Orleans exclusive, right? Is it John Jiang?
Right. This is John Jiang, and this is the Virgin variant. So they have another one that's got all the trade dressing on it or whatever, but this is one that I really think the trade dressing takes away from it, and this Virgin version is so much better, and it's got that cool X-ray effect on it, but everything about this just screams, this cosmic space despot that's got mystical powers and stuff. I love this cover so much.
Well, and he's got the Road Warriors shoulder pads on, which I think are incredible.
Yeah, right? It's also it's very much like a manga cover too.
Yes.
It's got that kind of composition going on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's done well. Look, Null is funny because as much as they've tried to push Null to be a premier villain, even though Venom is kind of looked at as a villain in some ways, right?
In some ways.
He is and he isn't, right? He picks and chooses his moments on when he wants to be bad. I don't really know, but they've really, I think they've missed an opportunity to cross Null into some of the other character arcs that really could work. And one of them for me would be why are we not getting some type of crossover into Moon Knight, right? With Null, that would be, or even if you do something that ties in some of the Scroll or something where maybe they get into it together, and really it's two bad guys going at each other, right, trying to take over a certain portion or whatever. But I think that what this is really Marvel is going to kind of start to push to get him, because we'll see another Venom movie, and I think Sony still owns the rights to that.
They do, and I think that's part of the reason why. I think since it's not all under the same banner, the same continuity, they probably ideally would like Null to be properly done in, a Marvel Studios type of title, as opposed to the Sonyverse type of title, which has been really just a disaster outside of maybe the first. That's not the Venom trilogy, which is pretty good. Outside that, it's been rough.
You say symbiote and people think Venom.
Yeah.
You might get some Carnage and a couple of the secondary characters, but when we start getting 100%. Into tertiary characters, and the funny thing about this to me is I love Donnie Cates. Donnie, when we did Cystic Fibrosis Foundation fundraising, I could email Donnie and say, hey, I need some books. He would send me, just like Cullen Bunn, would send me a box of signed, number ones and stuff. He's a great guy. But I think it's hilarious that he introduced this character and called him Null just so he could make a joke and a bad pun later down the line and introduce another character called Void. So now you've got Null and Void. And I think it's great that when things start from such silly, just like ideas that people have about puns and things. There was another one, it wasn't Anton, but it was another storyteller that's talking about he had in his adventures for his D&D players, they went to a tavern called Mundo, and then they went to Sun Fawn so that in the third chapter he could bring them to a Starbucks.
That's funny.
Full circle.
I mean, you gotta love stuff like that. Speaking of someone who would probably enjoy some Starbucks besides me, would be Starbucks. Go ahead and send some our way. Logan Black, White, and Blood. Now, the Black, White, and Blood line is something that you're starting to see Marvel scale up, and they have a tendency to do this to where they try to create a little bit of a darker comic book concept. And they did it with Spider-Man. They've got a couple other titles that, are out. You've got some current ongoings, and now they're going to bring Logan into this. What are your thoughts on this one, Brendan?
Okay, so this is the main cover, and I love this cover. But Eric, why don't you throw up the Adam Kubert variant while I'm doing the description here? So what we've got here is an anthology. It's 4-issue anthology. You've got Tom Waltz, Alex Lins, Saladin Ahmed, Adam Kubert, Larry Hama is doing one of these with Dave Wachter. But it's the brutal and violent life of Logan Wolverine, aka Logan's. What the hell? Logan Wolverine, aka anyway. Long and Violent History is showcased in brand new tales by top tier talent in brutal black, white, and red. So they are one shots basically. There's 4 of them, and you've got these amazing teams that are working on them. Larry Hama is a legend in this business. So basically, if you get number 1, 2, 3, or 4, and you can't find the other ones, you're still going to be able to read them as a self-sufficient story, start to finish. They've got some great covers out there. You see this variant right here has a lot more of the red in it, but it's just. What's that?
No, I have a question. So as I was looking about this, I was thinking about this. So, when The Mandalorian came out and when they did season 2, they brought in all these different directors, right? And each director directed an episode in the series.
Yeah.
Right. And it was interesting because each one of them did have their own style, their own take, their own thing, but it all concurrently worked very, very good together. Right. I'm looking at this and I'm saying you have arguably some really big writing names on this with Tom Waltz and Larry Hama. Right. So, and then, you have Saladin Ahmad on there too. And this is only a 4-book series. So is each one of them getting to write one of the books?
In the solicit, they've got 3 teams. It looks like they're holding back one of the teams. So working together are Tom Waltz and Alex Lins, then Saladin Ahmed and Adam Kubert, and then Larry Hama is working with Dave Wachter. The 4th team is not listed, but it looks like it's one creative team, one all-star creative team per issue.
This makes this very interesting to me because I know they've done this before, but usually they do it in a lot longer run where a certain group will get 12 books and then someone will pick it up at 13 through 25 or whatever, right? You know what I mean? So it's interesting to see a 4-part series that's going to be written by 4 different authors and have 4 different featured cover artists. That's very interesting to me. That is going to make this line, I think it's either going to be really good or it's going to be looked at as really bad. I don't think this is going to be, is this okay? And I guess now
it'll be polarizing.
Yeah. Should we look and see if the other Black, White, and Bloods were being done this way and we just didn't know it?
Yeah, I can go back and look at it. I can have that information.
Interesting to me. Like, is this something they're doing with Black, White, and Blood, or is this something that maybe they're going to start doing a mini series as a whole?
This one's more of an anthology than a miniseries, actually.
Yeah, maybe this is kind of like a pilot program for books that require less investment, because what are we always complaining about with Marvel is you have to read the whole line in order to
backlogging of material.
Entry point.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like what Steve says, because the reason why that didn't hurt the Mandalorian too much is because even though you have different directors, you have one common, or at least a pair of common showrunners. You have Filoni, you have Favreau, and no matter what, they're going to thread the story regardless of what the stylistic tone is of each episode, because there's a director who's in charge of the cinematography.
A Western or an epic ultimately. In the style of Mandalorian is you can write off some of the differences in style or whatever as unreliable narrator.
Yeah. Yes. Which is what Star Wars has always been big on.
Because it's all being retold. Like nobody's there filming it, so it's all being retold. So you're hearing a story. Who are you hearing it from?
Right.
Because if you hear it from Mando, you're going to hear a different story than if you hear it from, And
they're tall. Filoni's even gone on like record and said it. They're tall tales. It's supposed to be like a campfire type of feel to where it may change over the course of history. Right.
Hey, Eric, can you go to the other cover? I just want to see. I just out of curiosity, is this the bar from Wolverine and Deadpool? Because that would be a really cool callback, right?
Definitely. It's also cool. This is emphasizing Logan in the Logan.
But it's Logan,
right?
so it's supposed to be that piece of shit Canadian bar that he was fighting for, a hot dog and a handshake in or whatever. Because this is before he became the Wolverine.
Yeah, and that's what's cool about it. It's in the Logan namesake.
So
it's very separate from anything X-Men oriented.
Once I have this in hand, I'm gonna really look at it. I want to see if there's any Easter eggs in that background, because a lot of times that gets done right when you have a busy background like this and a busy cover.
Especially
very cool. Again, I knock number ones all the time, but when I see them doing something different, and again, I'm not saying they're doing this different for the first time, but this is definitely the first time it's calling to my action. That they're doing this. 4 different groups writing 4 different books in one series. I think that is a pretty cool way to present this, right? So I think that's neat. Next up, No, sorry. Is that the way?
I was just gonna say, isn't that the way that the whole Ice Cream Man series is written? Is like each individual one is yeah.
So it is.
The next one up.
But just real quick to touch base on the Ice Cream Man concept, it's not so well known that it's not pulling away from something we might know something about, right? Like that's the whole process with Star Wars has been, what's canon, what's not canon, and so on, right? So I feel like an Ice Cream Man, it's a lot easier to do something like that. I feel like this is tougher to do, to be able to pull the 4 different ones together.
Well, unless they're doing like different eras too, because if they do one where he's like 19 and one where he's 22 and one where he's 25 or whatever, like if they're doing different stories from different eras, that could be where they're headed with that.
If they're marketing it as an anthology book, then each team only has to worry about the 22 or 32 pages, right? Like it doesn't matter what comes next. It doesn't matter what came before.
It would be nice if they were oversized. You said 32 pages. If it was oversized for each one, that gives the writers and artists a little bit more room to explore.
So as we were mentioning, Luna Snow World Tour #1, and all I can say is this our introduction to bring the Demon Hunters into our mainstay?
100%. This is it's a K-pop story. So the first appearance of Vibe, a K-pop star whose music is so catchy that it's criminal. So you've got a bad villain who is a K-pop hero, apparently, I don't know. As the world recovers from Dr. Doom's takeover, K-pop star and ice-wielding superhero Luna Snow hits her lowest low yet. She takes her music into her own hands and hits the road. But when a new K-pop star appears on the scene with music that's so catchy it's criminal, they love that phrase, Luna has to shift into hero mode to defend the very fans who can't stand her. Can she win their hearts and save the day? And which beloved Marvel heroes will join her along the way?
Wow. Okay. I'm not really sure what to say here. And I looked really quick to see if, in fact, Demon Hunters, K-pop Demon Hunters had an agreement with one of the publishers, and at this point I'm only seeing that Penguin Random House is doing some graphic novel stuff that is direct from Netflix, but not necessarily someone having it directly licensed at this point. So I wonder if there's a licensing in place and that Marvel has it, to potentially say, take a book like this and then introduce them in. Because if I concepted this idea in this, that's the only reason I would be doing this.
Well, K-pop is a trend, and so I can't take this title seriously because they're obviously just riding the trend. Whether there's a tie-in or not, it's K-pop is in the news right now, so they're doing a K-pop story, and that's as deep as it needs to get. I mean, somebody's going to buy it.
Marvel just sometimes doesn't think about like, okay, we want to just do a book that we're just going to sell 4 of. You know what I mean? Like, that's not really their intentions. They usually do it as a rollout to then spiderweb off of that.
Look at the creative team, though. This is a favor to Greg Pak, it looks like, where he wanted to write it, and they're like, okay, cool, you've done a bunch of cool shit for us, so we'll let you do the one.
That's possible. I mean, I like the cover. I think the cover is very cool, especially with the characters set underneath it. And you can see some of the popular characters.
Key characters, iconic characters.
Yeah, which is fun. So they're like at the concert. So now
it's immersive. At least
so they're all K-pop fans. So now Deadpool canonically is a fan of K-pop.
Yes. You know, and if I wonder if what if the next Deadpool movie becomes a K-pop soundtrack?
Sounds like something Ryan Reynolds would probably
because that's something they would do 100%. Like,
I've tried to move on from this title like 6 times and you keep pulling it back in. The next one is so much more interesting than this. Where Does the Rainbow End is coming from artist Stefano Carticelli and writer Francesca Perillo. They're reuniting after they had a story that was pretty good called Love Me, a Romance Story. I love this art style. This reminds me so much of Stocco. And when he was doing like Alien and he does his wild little like zine style art. I love this art style, and that's what pulled me into it initially. But it says Gilda has been abandoned by her parents, but fortunately, she's been discovered in the Case Bros robot dump and has been raised by the robots who discovered her. She was lucky to be found in the Rainbow Sector by robots that cared for her. However, she's also been shielded from the outside world, other humans, and a dangerous section of their robot world called the Dark Cage, where the most hostile robots live. Word is spread about her ability to fix robots, though, and one vicious robot from the Dark Cage wants her to repair all the violent robots that live there, and nothing will stop him.
The art style is really cool. I like this because we don't get a lot of covers like this when we do these, week by week rundowns of the titles. And it's cool because I'm sure they're out there. It's just, for our topical content, we tend to focus on some of the other, the other covers. But this is really, really cool, even though I don't have much knowledge about outside of what you gave me in the solicit. But visually, I love this because it seems so... I don't want to say sophomoric because it doesn't. It looks very professional, but it looks almost more down to earth than stuff you will get elsewhere, even the other covers that. So it's not sophomoric in the artistry, but it seems a little bit more like just, resonant immediately without having to use too much imagination or having to have too much context of what it's actually about.
Well, Erik, you know that it's like so much easier to find content on stuff right now. So some of these indie books, like people are getting so much more information about the creative team, the background, the, larger balloon of the story and all that. So, I would suspect that we're probably going to see a little bit more indie type of art style like this on some of these books, just because.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, part of it is, going to what Brett was saying. It's there is a style to your superhero cover, right? And if you are at the shop, you are going to see similar looking covers. I'm not going to say same because that would be too far, but similar looking covers. And then you spot an indie title that just has a completely different aesthetic. That's going to catch your eye.
Of course. 100%. And that's why I think it's cool about it because it almost there's like a human interest element because not saying there's not any fantastical or imaginary elements to Where Does the Rainbow End, but it's more so that if you're seeing something outlandish from Marvel and DC, whether it's a good story or not, if the cover's crazy, you're going to think, all right, there's a lot of legwork to be done here. Where here you may just pop this open and see what it's all about, like Erik just said, out of curiosity.
All right, we only have about 20 minutes left, so I'm going to rush into the next title. Which is actually a reprint. It's a facsimile edition of The New Gods #1, which is a 1971 classic Kirby. So I'm going to read the description of this one right here, and I just want Erik, who probably knows way more about this title, to tell us why this one is so important. But it's an epic battle between the gods of old, resulting in the utter destruction of their realm and their world. Jack Kirby, 1971.
Yeah,
Go.
We are establishing the enmity between Orion and Darkseid. In this issue's insane. I mean, it's a Jack Kirby comic, so of course it's insane. But this may also be the first appearance of Surprise Darkseid. I think. I think he shows up at the end of the issue on Orion's couch, starting a 50-year tradition of Darkseid just appearing in people's homes, or
this may be
working at McDonald's, or things like that. I mean, I'm going to go with the comedy aspect of Surprise Darkseid, but I mean, a Kirby comic, and this is Kirby unfiltered. He is writing it, he is editing, he is drawing. I think someone else inks, I forget, but it is pure Kirby craziness.
And that's when, like, I think this may be the most, like, maybe not influential, but at one point, this may have been the most relevant cover that we've, at least recent memory, have gone over. Because so much of the other covers that, are brand new ideas. Sometimes it's a rehashing or a special edition. This is the exact imagery from when this came out in the prime of the New Gods era. And sometimes
except for the price tag on there, that's a modern price.
Good point. Very good. Yeah, good.
Which,
important to distinguish that.
If Johnny were joining us this morning, he would go ahead and point out that this looks too much like the original cover, and people are going to get confused by it.
Right.
But that one thing that's on there is the $4 price tag. This wouldn't have cost $4.71. It would have been 60 cents, right?
But what's so cool about it is that I think that's the very dynamic at play here. It's a new cover that looks like it's as if it's been in a time capsule, and that's what's so cool. Because when it comes to Jack Kirby and the New Gods, you don't want to get too modern, because then you get away from what was so cool about him in the 70s and the 80s.
But
I love that they knew that he was going to be a big deal, because you look at the top right there, and the lead is Kirby is here.
I mean, it was a giant deal that he left Marvel and went to DC. It was such a huge thing. It was like the biggest story in comics at the time.
Probably up to that point.
Maybe up to that point entirely, right? I mean, because you're also, that's like your nascent fan press era too. So it's like, no one actually ever cared about this stuff until Kirby moved, because the audience was there to care about it. And it was like, we never thought he was ever going to leave Marvel. And Stan Lee treated him like shit. So
100%. And when you
listen, Hulk Hogan going to WCW in 1996,
no doubt, Brandon, it's Bash the Beach, and that's a great point too, Erik, because like it's one of those things where what Marvel did to counter DC with the cosmic stuff in Jim Starlin, which is now as popular as ever because that's been adapted to the movies in the past 10, 15 years. That is all a result of Kirby's vacancy having to be filled. So basically what you get with Thanos and all that is the big counterpunch to Darkseid, but a lot of people don't know that because it was really just filling the void that Kirby left to go do new things because Marvel didn't treat him right.
Right.
Yeah.
So to own a piece of history without shelling out $15,000, you can go out right now and get this $4 cover on Wednesday, or this $4 reproduction, and so you can look at what was actually happening, what the art style was, the way the characters are interacting and stuff. It's a completely different animal than what's happening now, but these were the pioneers that changed the medium and made it into what it is today. These are the pieces that are falling together that made the modern landscape. And then another one that's coming up is Batman the Killing Joke. They're doing a facsimile of this one as well. And this is another big one in the Batman lore, because this is when you're starting to see things get really, really dark, because they're realizing that a bunch of their fans are not kids. A bunch of their fans are adults, and they've got some more adult themes. There are some scenes in this one that are just way graphic, way more than they used to do on here. But it's a quintessential Batman story. It's getting reprinted. You can get it for $4. It's the ultimate showdown between the Joker and Batman, with Jim Gordon's life hanging in the balance. Batman races against the clock to rescue his friend from the clutches of the Joker in this intense, bracing look deep into the soul of a madman.
And although his name is right there on the cover, he asks that you only refer to him as the original writer.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
What?
Basically, because his issues with DC never end, there came a point where he didn't even want to take money for the movies that are based on his work. And he's like,
wow,
do not credit me, call me the original writer, and give all the money to the artist.
Right.
Wow.
So
well, I mean, at least with his take the ball and go home, he's not taking the paycheck with him. At least he was.
That's how angry he got. Like Dave Gibbons basically won because the original writer wanted nothing to do with Watchmen. So Dave Gibbons got to do the set tour. He got to do press stuff. They wheel him out and pay him every time they do a Watchmen thing. Right. And so Gibbons has a retirement because the original writer got so angry.
Alan Moore, because basically Alan Moore is just, Alan Moore. Right. But that's what's so funny, because like it's almost, we talked about on the show, has the Killing Joke almost hurt Batman? Because like it's like much like with the Nolan films for a while, we were wondering if that hurt Batman, because now you're making Batman so hyper realistic. Now it's all like, where's the fun if it's so realistic, right? If Batman's always dark and brooding, which at its core is supposed to be.
Bane's voice killed Batman. It wasn't Nolan.
I'm going to disagree with that.
Give me a cup. Yeah, let me go grab a cup from the kitchen. I used to do it all the time. You tilt the cup like halfway out, like on your mouth, and it's like just like halfway through like the circle, and you could get it perfect. But no, as much of a impact those movies made, it sometimes pigeonholes Batman when you get something so impactful. And I think maybe the Killing Joke, maybe not so much now, but for a while kind of fell into that trap to where now Batman has to be so dark, you can't have any fun superhero elements to it, which at one point he did have. There was a balance in the 70s with the Denny Moore, Denny O'Neil years and stuff like that. There was that fine balance that sometimes they've gotten away from.
Yeah, I mean, I know Grant Morrison, when they were writing, tried really hard to find that balance again, to the point of literally having Batman say to Alfred, "I'm opening the sci-fi closet."
Right.
And you go, and he opens the sci-fi closet, and it's like all of the wacky trophies from those really goofy adventures where he'd go out into space and stuff.
Right. And that's what's so funny. It's like
reason to get this thing, I think, if you've never read The Killing Joke, is the Brian Bolland artwork. Like,
the artwork's the highlight of the whole thing.
Brian Bolland is
probably better than the story.
Such a great
Did he do this cover? Did he do this cover as well?
He did the cover, and he does all the interiors. It is.
I have never seen a more referenced or parodied cover than this one in my entire time in comics.
Oh, by far.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
It is used in everything.
100%.
Never mind what he's actually taking a photo of, but
right. Didn't it used to be? There used to be a reflection in the lens, and I think that they changed the reflection a little bit.
They had to because what he's actually photographing is so horrific. But
and it's like Watchmen. How many people know the plot of Watchmen? But think about how many people know the imagery of Watchmen.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. They probably don't know the storyline of Dr. Manhattan and everything, Night Owl and everything between. But the images of it, they can immediately.
Well, I mean, how about your main character in the Watchmen being a violent rapist? I mean, that's like what superhero story starts out with like,
100%.
Here's our guy, and we hate him because he sucks.
100%. And outside the Boys, nothing really. And the Boys is kind of the newer this generation's version of.
But the
Watchmen
Boys 100% lifted that from Watchmen. They had 100%. To take that dynamic.
Oh, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's insanely derivative. And Watchmen, before Watchmen, no one has done it. And since Watchmen, there have been some edgelords who have tried to do it, but the Boys is kind of the only one that's somewhat hit the mark.
So I know that we kicked everything off with this, and we didn't really get a chance to talk to Paul about his new year and everything that went on. So I want to make sure that we get a chance to kind of catch up with Paul here a little bit. Paul, tell us, it's been a little bit since we've all gotten together and chatted. How was your New Year's? How did you celebrate it? Obviously, we talked about you're in a different location. Are you in the same location? What's going on with you, Paul?
I'm building my podcast studio. I threw out all my mom's stuff from her old office. So now I have a workout. I got a Peloton bike for the holidays. So wait, are you guys still there? And I'm building a podcast studio. I've got lighting. It's step one. And I can change that. Check this out. Whoa. So I'm building my podcast studio. I had a fantastic New Year, spent it at my brother's house. Took my mom. We were out till like 3 or 4 in the morning. She's quite the party animal. But now I can bring her in here and sit her down next to me, and we can interview people. Christmas was wonderful as well. I've missed you guys, believe it or not, tremendously.
Oh, back at you.
Yeah. So, and then I'm going to Podfest next week. So I'll be in Orlando. I'll be coming at you guys live from Orlando Podfest. So I'm totally looking forward to that, where I'll be promoting the C3POD as well as Paul Vato Presents, and just the normal stuff. Vato Coin, Parse Rum. Hello. Are you guys?
Parse what?
Rum. Parse Rum.
Parcell?
Bill
Parcells, 2-time Super Bowl winning coach of the New York Giants.
I'm going to partner up with him, maybe. But, thanks. You're the only one that really sticks around for this promo, so thank you.
It's in the freezer.
Thank you very much. The body? I like your new location. What are you hiding? Wait, you guys are still there, right? Listening to my promotions?